Welcome to JM Clips. I'm Jared McIntyre, and today we are talking about the Odyssey. So this was an anticipated film for me. I've been keeping up with the production for over a year, and about a year ago, I told a good friend of mine, hey, we need to meet up. He lives a few states away. We need to meet up and watch this together, as the narrative was significant to the both of us on a personal level. And so, and then you add on top of that, I'm a Chris Nolan fan, and then one by one, you figure out the amazing talents that are a part of the production. And so obviously I was incredibly stoked. So me and my dear friend, who he lives in Texas, I in Missouri, we drove all the way to Oklahoma City to meet up together, watch this film together, and it was an experience for sure. And yes, I know what you're thinking, I did get the Trojan horse popcorn holder. So let's talk about this in a way that is a no spoiler version first, and then we'll get into some spoilers. All right, here we go. So first off, let me say this: from a filmmaker standpoint, this is one of the most impressively shot and photographed films I've ever seen, and I can say that without any exaggeration or fear of overselling at all. If you know the Odyssey, it's not really like a movie you can spoil in that sense, unless you just don't know the Odyssey. And at this point, you know, it's your own fault if you don't know the Odyssey. So, when I say spoilers, I'm going to be talking about the way they, the way they created the parts of the narrative that we, or most of us, already know. We're not going to quite get to narrative things yet. Again, this is a incredibly shot film. This is no spoiler at all. This movie has a Cyclops in it, maybe the most famous Cyclops of all artistic history. And I remember watching that and being very impressed. And as we left, I said something that is one of the most stupid things to say for a Christopher Nolan fan. And I said, man, that looked great. That must have been one of the cut to like 2 or 3 things that was CGI. It was not CGI. I don't know how they did that. First of all, it's shot on real locations, so this is a real cave, and who knows where. And they have this incredible puppet, this puppetry Cyclops giant thing. I don't know how they did that. Pretty much every shot you see of a ship at sea in this film is really that ship out at sea. A lot of the lighting is practical with fire because you're out in the middle of the ocean, you know. There's not enough room for can lights and things like that. And so this was a very authentic film. And I think that comes across the practicals of the filmmaking. That bleeds its way into the narrative, into the tone of how you receive the story as an audience member. Again, the word is very authentic. What do we want to do? Okay, we're going to move into the portion of the review that has the 2, maybe 3 elements that I'm going to say not necessarily were derogatives for me or negatives, but things that I do wish were done in a different creative aspect. They will include spoilers of not only the Odyssey narrative historically, but also just how things are done in the film, how it's manifested in the film. And so if you don't want to hear this, just know I'm giving this movie a solid 8. An 8 out of 10. Its pros or cons are the vastness of the film, the cinematography of the film. You could pause this movie at any moment and it's a beautiful frame, maybe even a how did they do that frame. All of the negatives I have to say, unfortunately, are found in a spoiler aspect. So if that's not for you, click off this video now. This will be the remaining portion of this review. The dialogue and or the vernacular of the film, so they chose to run with modern English. Now, when I first heard that, I said, well, great, I can't understand anything else. But okay, this is going to sound so stupid, but hopefully it makes sense. I expected more of a Russell Crowe Gladiator, right? It's modern English, and maybe parts of this is just Russell Crowe's natural tone, but you kind of have that gruff accent, are you not entertained? Things like that. Favorite movie quote ever is, what we do in life echoes in eternity. It's literally American modern English, but there's a presentation that calls back to a former sound, more historic sound to it. And I thought that we were going to do this, but no, like the tones that you hear Matt Damon, Tom Holland, all these different incredible actors, they could have been shooting a future movie, a movie about the future, and they would sound the exact same. And I found it to be a little disheartening, especially when there's this character in this film that has passed or is about to pass, and they tell Odysseus, hey, go tell my family this and that about all the things I've done. And then they say this line right here: Odysseus, feel free to throw in some stuff. I'm like, did I just hear the word stuff? The word stuff and from an ancient Greek warrior? Stuff? Okay, that's where I'm like, the writing could be a bit more elevated and eloquent in the sense of vernacular and dialogue. Stuff? I hear stuff in my everyday life. I use the word stuff. But when I go to be immersed into the day-to-day of a Trojan war veteran, I don't want to hear the word stuff, All right, derogative number dos. And that would be the characterization or the lack thereof of Odysseus. So, if you know anything about the original text, you know that Odysseus, he defines his stamp of hero as cunning and clever. Cunning and clever. And sometimes that is at the detriment of his character or integrity. So, if you're at all a fan of storytelling, you know that this is the story. This predates the coming of Christ. This is the story that for many years, really up until Shakespeare's Hamlet, has defined what heroism is. And if you look at any of your heroes from those ancient stories, you see a cunning and clever and sometimes crafty to the fault of their character hero. And one of these most famous moments in the original Odyssey is at the escape of the Cyclops, right? He has tricked them. One, he has dialogued with the Cyclops, which they left that out. And he tells the Cyclops his name is No Name, or maybe it's Nobody. Yeah, I think it's Nobody. Something like that, and then the Cyclops is yelling, nobody got me, or whatever. And then on the ship, right, Odysseus yells back, I am Odysseus, right, and this is this, and I tricked you. And, the Cyclops hurdles rocks and all those things. None of that happens. To me, it's such a anchor for the character, for him to turn back when he's got away. He doesn't want to anger this thing anymore. He's got away in his victory, and he has to make sure he turns back and let this Cyclops know who has outsmarted him. It's a moment of pride, which is a staple, poignant element of Odysseus' character. And I got about that much pride, cunningness, and clever from this movie, from Odysseus. Don't get me wrong, he's a great leader. But that's to his fault almost. He's such a all-American boy type of. He's a modern hero. He's not the hero, the Odysseus. He's not the Greek soldier. He's Superman. He's your Southern patriotic, I'll do the right thing always guy, and that's not who Odysseus was. The only other derogative, and this, I'll be honest, didn't bother me as much as personally by the individual I was watching the film with, is quite familiar with the original text, and the way they do the Cersei scene, so if you know about Cersei, she changes, turns Odysseus' men into pigs. Obviously there's symbolism there, and he turns them back. They changed the method of which this was done, and then the artistic style that they chose to represent this was very odd. Like, so she's coming around with her hands, putting them on the men's head and molding them, cracking the bones into pigs. That is nowhere to be found. Maybe it's an interesting modern take on the situation, but to me, it brought me out of the film. Just because, like, this is a witch, right? I guess they're trying to make the witch a very more tactile experience, but to me, as if it's a witch, like, you should be doing that through showing me her potions, or the kind of like almost supernatural element. Like, this felt almost like utilitarian, like almost as if I could have walked up there, grabbed this guy by the head, and made a pit. Like it didn't feel witchy. Let's see here. Let's move on to some more pros. Tom Holland plays Telemachus, Odysseus' son, in this movie, and he is fantastic. Here's a pro and a con, if you will. He is a lot of the emotional weight in this movie. He's part of what Odysseus is longing to get back home for, his son. His son is waiting for his dad that many or most say is never coming back or already dead. And they have that moment where they're like, oh, dad's back, and it's that awesome Tom Holland, he can pull those emotions really well. Chris Nolan should have leaned into that. It was about a 5 to 10 second moment where we're like, good watery eyes there. And then that was it. They're moving back onto plot development. When you have a talent like Tom Holland, give him his moment, man. Let him stir something up from the audience. Not give them a little hit of dopamine and now let's move on. That's all I'm saying. But let's wrap this thing up. Most actors and actresses did phenomenal. I realize I spent a good amount of time on the derogatives, but that's just because I'm trying to be as upfront as possible. If I had to step back and again remind, like even if you don't have a filmmaking brain, but you just like watch this movie in its full scope, understanding that everything you're seeing is real. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful. You don't have to have any interest in filmmaking, and you watch this movie and oh man, I've never seen anything like this before. A lot of, there's been a lot of online reaction to the wardrobe, specifically Agamemnon's beast of a armor suit. Some very incredible things come out of this movie. You have to watch it. I don't know if it's going to be my top of the year. I have a feeling coming December 25th, Robert Eggers' Werewolf will probably be my number 1. I feel like I've already seen my number 2, which would be Curry Barker's Obsession. And this is probably going to be my number 3 for the year, but that doesn't mean it's not a solid 8 out of 10 film. And it's going to be important to me years from now. I will come back to this film as it just has this nostalgic, like you watch this movie and you feel like, this feels like home. This feels like somewhere I've been wanting to be back at again. It's a nostalgic film. Watch it. Go see it. The Odyssey by Christopher Nolan. This has been JM Clips. I'm Jared McIntyre. We have upcoming things in the future. Please stay tuned. Thank you. Go watch more movies.